Now it's time for TIPisodes with quick tips you should know. Techniques you can implement into your workflow right here on A Tale, oh yeah, A Tale of Two Hygienists.
Welcome everyone into this week's TIPisode. My name is Andrew, I'm your host. The inspiration for this one was simply that, I just think back over my career and there's been so much fighting in the offices. Sometimes it's in our personal lives too, and I think that we can take a lot of the things that we talk about today and put it into our personal life. But there's been so much fighting in the offices that a lot of times it's very unwarranted. We end up burning bridges, we ruin relationships, we ruin, in the dental community, it's so small, so sometimes we hurt ourselves for finding a job later on. So when I saw this article last month, and it's written by Ali Volpe, and she wrote it for Vox, I just knew we had to put this on the show at some point. So one kind of clarification though is when we talk about fighting, I think I'm going to use the term fighting quite a bit in here. I want it to be interchangeable with argument and disagreement, not we're putting on boxing gloves and we're going to duke it out. And then also I'm going to put the article and put a link to it in the show notes because I think Ali does a much better job of going into a lot of detail. She cites different people and sources that we just don't have time for on this episode. So make sure that you give that a really good read. So before I recorded this, I played a little game in my head, and then I was actually going to try and get several people on to discuss this article with me, but I just ran out of time. But I wanted to think okay, who are some of the people in dentistry that we look up to, and how do they fight? You think about a lecturer on the circuit, or you think about, we all know Jackie Sanders for RDH Magazine. How does she fight, or argue or disagree or whatever? And what does that look like? And I think that, you think about your best friends. If you've never had an experience where you've had a fight or an argument with them, you just really don't know. Because the person who might be a little bit more loud might be the person that gets super loud when they argue. Or the person that's maybe a little bit quieter might be more passive aggressive. And then, I don't know, I just thought it was funny, but I took one step further and I was okay, how do people think that I fight? And I would love to get people's opinions on it because I think that everyone knows me a different capacity, and everyone knows you in a different capacity as well. So let's say, my wife and I are fighting about something, and you, the listener, who listened to me either for maybe this is their first episode or maybe you've listened to me for years, do you think I'm a yeller, or am I a negotiator? Am I the get even guy, or I'm not this guy? Because this one drives me crazy, I promise. But it's the guy that keeps score and keeps bringing everything to pass and just throws it into this new fight. Anyways, I think it's an interesting game to play. What do you think about your friends? And then what do you think that they think about you? Because I think that's very telling of what kind of a person that you are. You're going to be able to be a healthy disagreeer or not. So let's get to the article. The first takeaway is the idea that just everyone fights. This is inevitable. Everyone kind of comes into these situations where they're going to have a disagreement or an argument or a full-blown fight with somebody. And I think the problem here is that a lot of people have guilt over disagreement, and some have more guilt than other people. It's really important to learn yourself and the person that you are in a disagreement so that when you have this disagreement, it's not going to impact you so much. So if you are finding that you're someone who's dang, that argument really took its toll on me when probably it shouldn't have, that's when you go see a professional to get help with that, because there's usually root causes, and it's usually root causes that have nothing to do with the fight by itself, right? People fight, people argue, and that's okay. And you shouldn't be carrying that with you from, one day to the next, or even after the argument's over. The next big point is discovering the solution quicker. So in the article, they talk a lot about, many people fight to win. They want to prove that point. They want to say, hey, I'm more right than you are. And a healthy fight has the opposite purpose. The purpose of a healthy fight is to discover where the truth is, and then to give you and your, not opponent, but opponent, for the lack of a better word, an opponent, the actionable takeaways for the future, so this doesn't happen again, so that it's over. Some people also love to fight just to fight, but that's an aside. Yeah, I just think it's really important that you argue, discover, move on. They gave a really great example in the article that I just want to modify a touch. to make it for the dental setting, like it's not uncommon that this exact thing happens. The dental assistant complains to the doctor or the office manager that you are not helping enough, either in sterilization or breaking down your room or whatever. You get upset, you confront the assistant, and then they get upset that you confronted them, and then an argument ensues. What are we even fighting about here? Like, when you really think about it, like, what are we arguing about? Because what we should be finding out is if you're actually helping them in the way that they have it set up in their mind that you are supposed to help them. Like, they have an expectation for you. You didn't meet that expectation. Where's the disconnect? All this other stuff is ancillary to all that, and it's really kind of unnecessary. You went and confronted that person. Sometimes we are upset when we confront people. Why were you upset? Maybe you didn't feel like it was right that they accused you of something that you probably were not doing. And you might be upset that they didn't come to you directly to talk about it. Why would they go to the doctor? Why wouldn't they have an adult conversation with you to set things right? So one approach that you might try, according to the article, is to approach them and ask them why this is so important to them and what impact this is having on them. Open a dialogue and a discussion rather than accusing right away. I think it's important really to come with a demeanor of wanting to learn, because we also don't know what kind of baggage they're carrying around. Maybe they got burned by the last hygienist. Maybe the last hygienist really screwed them over, like all the time. And then now it's a short fuse because all hygienists are the same. And, they don't have that patience. They said, okay, well, you're going to screw me over just like that last person did. Another key statement that was made was that people only argue for three main reasons. One is to make a point, two is to make a difference, or three is to be heard. And they go into each of these really well in the article, but the gist of it was anytime you come to an argument to make a point, you are going to fail in making that a healthy discussion or a healthy argument or a healthy conflict. Yeah, that person is never going to respond well to that. I mean, just think about it. Like, if everyone's coming to you to try and make a point right in your face, you are wrong, you are terrible, how are you going to respond to that? It's going to be terrible. So, and likewise for them. So going back to, coming to these discussions with the desire to learn, I think making a difference and wanting to be heard are two also very good points. And then two more quick takeaways, but I promise you, you just need to read this article. It's a really good article. It's important to focus on areas of agreement and negotiation where you don't agree. The word negotiate is key here, and it can only be done when, and this is the last takeaway, you keep your emotions in check. Sometimes our bodies betray us. We have muscle tightness, we have crying, we have a desire to yell or scream, elevate our voice, our blood pressure goes up, we might have the inability to gather thoughts properly. When this happens, the article recommends that we step away from the conversation for a quick minute to reset before coming back to the conversation. You'll never be able to articulate what you want to say, and you might actually say things that you didn't mean to say when your body is betraying you. I really wish that I could be here to say, hey, I've been successful in all healthy discussions for my whole entire life. I've been so amazing at it. But unfortunately, whether it was my own immaturity or lack of understanding or the other person's lack of understanding, whatever it was, things haven't always been perfect. There's a part in the article kind of towards the end that I'm not going to cover in this. I really do want you to read the article, but it talks about what to do if you really can't ever get to a place of understanding with that person. What happens if you've done all the things that you think are right and they've done all the things that they think are right, and you're just never going to see eye to eye? What do? It's pretty darn good. So with that, I will leave this. I hope you all have a great Friday, and we'll see you next week.
A tale of two hygienists.